Chapter 2. Dad, Nicole began, are you sure those bears you saw were real? Of course I'm sure, Dad boomed to her. I know the difference between a brown bear and a teddy bear. He began to pace back and forth across the dark room floor. Did I lose the film somehow? He murmured, clutching his head with one hand. Could someone have switched it? The weird part is that you were taking pictures of bears, Nicole noted, and you ended up with teddy bears. That's just so strange. Dad furiously tapped his hands on the developing table. He muttered to himself. He was starting to lose it. Did I lose the film on the plane somehow? Switch carry-on bags with someone else, maybe? I turned my back to Dad, my shoulders shaking. Jordan? What's the matter? Dad grabbed my shoulders. Are you all right? He spun me around. Jordan? Dad cried. You're laughing? Nicole crossed her arms. She narrowed her eyes at me. What did you do to Dad's pictures? Dad frowned. His voice was calmer now. All right, Jordan. What's the big joke? I gasped for breath, trying to stop laughing. Don't worry, Dad. Your pictures are okay. He shoved one of the teddy bear shots in my face. Okay? You call this okay? I borrowed your camera before you left for Wyoming, I explained. I took a bunch of shots of my old teddy bear for a joke. The rest of the film should have your real bears on it. I can't resist a good practical joke, Nicole said. I had nothing to do with it, Dad, I swear. Little Miss Goody-Goody. Dad shook his head. A joke? He turned back to the photos and developed a few more. The next shot showed a real bear cub fishing in a stream. Dad laughed. You know, he said, putting the pictures of the real bear next to one of the teddy bear shots, they don't look as different as you'd think. I knew Dad wouldn't stay angry. He never does. That's one reason I like to play tricks on him. He likes to play practical jokes, too. Did I ever tell you about the trick I pulled on Joe Morrison? He asked. Joe Morrison is a photographer friend of Dad's. Joe had just gotten back from Africa where he had spent months photographing gorillas. He was all excited about these fabulous gorilla shots he'd taken. I saw the pictures, and they were really spectacular. Well, Joe had a big meeting set up with the editor of a nature magazine. He was going to go in and show the editor these photos. He was sure the magazine would snap them up in a second. Joe didn't know that the editor and I had gone to college together, so I called her up and asked her to help me play a little joke on Joe. When Joe went to see her, he showed her the pictures. She looked at them without saying a word. Finally, he couldn't stand the suspense any longer. He blurted out, Well, do you like them or not? He's an impatient guy, Joe. What did he say? I asked. She frowned and said, You're a good photographer, Mr. Morrison, but I'm afraid you've been tricked. The creatures you photographed aren't gorillas at all. Joe's jaw practically fell off his face. He said, What do you mean they're not gorillas? She said with a perfectly straight face, They're people in gorilla suits. Can't you tell the difference between a real gorilla and a man in a gorilla suit, Mr. Morrison? I chuckled. Nicole asked, Well, then what happened? Joe practically had a nervous breakdown. He snatched up the photos and stared at them. He shouted, I don't get it. How could that happen? I spent 6 months of my life studying people in gorilla suits. Finally, the editor burst out laughing and told him it was a joke. She loved the photos and wanted to publish them. Joe wouldn't believe her at first. It took her 15 minutes to get him to calm down. Dad and I both laughed. I think that's really mean, Dad, Nicole scolded. I get my joker strength from Dad. Nicole takes after Mom. She's more practical. Joe thought it was funny once he got over the shock, Dad assured her. He's played his share of tricks on me, believe me. Dad swished another photo through the chemical bath. Then he held it up with his tongs. It showed 2 bear cubs wrestling. He smiled with satisfaction. This roll came out great, he said. But I've got a lot more work to do in here, kids. Go on outside for a while, okay? He turned the red light off and flipped on the normal light. Nicole opened the door. Don't get all messed up and dirty, though, Dad added. We're all going out to dinner tonight. I want to celebrate my luck with the brown bears." "We'll be careful," Nicole promised. "Speak for yourself," I said. "I mean it, Jordan," Dad warned. "Just kiddin', Dad." A wave of heat blasted us when we opened the dark room door. Nicole and I stepped out into the backyard, blinking in the afternoon sun. It always takes my eyes a long time to adjust after I've been in the dark room. "What do you want to do?" Nicole asked. "I don't know," I replied. "It's so hot. It's too hot to do much of anything." Nicole closed her eyes and zoned out for a minute. "Nicole?" I nudged her. "Nicole, what are you doing?" "I'm thinking about the snow in Dad's pictures of the Grand Tetons. I thought it would make me feel colder." She stood perfectly still with her eyes closed. A bead of sweat dripped down her forehead. "Well?" I asked. "Is it working?" She opened her eyes and shook her head. "No. How can I imagine snow if I've never felt it?" "Good point," I sighed, and gazed around me. We live in a subdivision in the suburbs of Pasadena. There are only 3 different kinds of houses in our neighborhood. The same 3 house styles are repeated for miles around. It's so boring to look at. It makes me feel even hotter somehow. Each block has a couple of palm trees, not enough to give much shade. There's a vacant lot across the street from us, next door to the Millers. The most exciting feature of our backyard, maybe the whole block, is Dad's disgusting compost heap. I squinted and stared some more. Everything appeared bleached in the sunlight. Even the grass looked almost white. "I'm so bored I could scream," I complained. "Let's ride our bikes," Nicole suggested. "Maybe the breeze will cool us off." "Maybe Lauren will want to go with us," I added. Lauren Sachs lives next door to us. She's in our class at school. I see her so often she might as well be my sister. We rolled out our bikes from the garage and walked them over to Lauren's. We left our bikes at the side of her house. Then we went around back. We found Lauren sitting on a towel under a palm tree in her backyard. Nicole sat beside Lauren on the towel. I leaned against the tree. "It's so hot," Lauren whined. She tugged on her yellow shorts. She's tall and muscular with long brown hair and bangs. She has a nasal voice good for complaining. "This is supposed to be winter. It's winter everywhere else. A normal winter has snow and ice and sleet and freezing rain and cold, cold air. What do we get? Nothing but sun. Why do we have to be so hot?" Suddenly, I felt a pain in my back. "Ow!" I jerked forward. Something stabbed me, something stinging sharp and ice cold. My face twisted in pain. "Jordan?" Nicole gasped. "What's wrong? What's wrong?"